Okay, everyone, we will get started. So thank you all so much for attending today. I really appreciate your time. This will be about 30 minutes in length. I'll speak for about 15, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open up for some questioning. If anyone would like to send in their questions via the chat box, they can. It's just below. And please know this will be recorded, and it's being recorded now. So for those who maybe joined after I introduced myself, hello and good day. My name is Kevin. I am here based in our headquarters in Dubai. I'm obviously not there now, given the recent events, but I do work here in Dubai. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts in the United States, where I did my undergraduate degree at Brandeis University and then my master's degree at Tufts University, where I also served as the assistant tennis coach. Tennis is my sport and my hobby. Prior to my tennis playing days at Brandeis, where I did my undergrad degree, I also trained at the IMG Academy, which is a multi-sport academy in Florida. It's very well known for its tennis, but also has grown to many other sports. So today we'll be speaking generally. If anyone has any specific sport-related questions, I'm happy to answer them in the chat box during the question and answer session, by email afterwards, or you're always welcome to call our office. Our contact info will be listed at the end of this presentation. So great, we will get started. So our agenda for today. The first thing is I will introduce two myths of the NCAA recruiting process. It's very important. This recruiting process is something that has many twists and turns. No recruiting process is like another. Everyone's different. The second thing I'll talk about today is a breakdown of the NCAA divisions. Something that I often have seen in my role working with students over the past few years is that there are some just maybe tricky areas between understanding the different divisions. People don't understand what the differences are, and I'll try and go into more depth on those, and then I'll leave time for your question and answers. I'll do my best to keep this as interactive as possible. We'll have a few polls going through here as well, just to kind of keep everyone engaged. And so I hope you enjoy them. So myth number one, all schools, colleges, and universities are classified as the same within the NCAA. So that means that major schools like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, as well as schools that we also know as the University of California, Los Angeles, maybe even MIT, and many others are all classified as the same. Truth, there are actually multiple divisions in the NCAA. Divisions 1, 2, 3, NAIA, and something called JUCO, or junior college. For the sake of brevity, and for what most of our students are going to see in their application process, I'll only focus on divisions 1, 2, and 3 for this webinar. However, there are some specific sport-related differences that I won't touch upon unless a specific person has a question on it. I'll definitely go into details on that, but just to keep everything clear in general so everyone understands, this is the main ones we'll focus on today. So this is the NCAA breakdown by division. So Division 1 on the left. Division 1 is pretty much mostly known for having scholarships available. So student athletes, if they qualify for them based on their results, their academics, their maybe even what they'll bring to the team, for example, they can earn a scholarship. Most scholarships are for partial tuition. Usually the ones that we see are up to half, but there are full scholarships or full rides available for some students. Every sport is different with the amount of scholarships that are available, and every division, as you see here, is also different. So there is no one-size-fits-all scholarship. Everyone is different. Division 1 is the most competitive. So you're wondering, what do you mean by most competitive? Well, just in general, Division 1 seeks the highest tier athletes. Many professional athletes who participated in their sport in college or university were in Division 1. Michael Phelps, for example, many other tennis players, the Bryan brothers for any tennis fans out there, or many of the Olympians who played in college sports played in Division 1. Though there are some differences. Next tab there is largest range. You're wondering what largest range is? Largest range is the overall, I don't want to say quality for lack of a better word, but I would say the level of teams and schools, there's a big range in Division 1. So for example, a top Division 1 program, like we can obviously, I think we can all say, would be, let's say, Ohio State in football at one point, American football. That is the top tier of Division 1. But then there are schools that maybe aren't there. For example, if anyone knows a school like Texas State, it's also Division 1, but is not as well known. And the last one is flexible admissions. So flexible admissions, that means that Division 1 has the most flexible admissions process for student athletes. So there is a specialized admissions process for student athletes. I won't go too deep into it today because that is a bit particular, but there is a kind of a specialized track for student athletes, most particularly in Division 1 or Division 2. Moving on to Division 2. Scholarships are also available in Division 2. These are usually a little bit smaller in monetary amount, but can still be definitely worthwhile. These schools are generally the least competitive. Now, mind you, every division is competitive. I don't want to say that. But generally, when you're seeing these schools, many of these teams are very strong in their sports, but maybe don't have the same national prestige and ranking. The third tab for Division 2 that I always like to share with everyone is these schools are fairly regional. We don't see the major state schools as generally in Division 1 or some of the small colleges that we know of. Like in Division 2. The Division 2 schools are fairly regional, smaller in nature. For example, one of these would be the University of Central Oklahoma. It's a little bit random, I know, but that is one of the Division 2 schools. And then the last one is brand name. So brand name is something that we hear a lot as counselors, and it is something that I do want to bring up. The brand name of Division 2 schools, people may not know Division 2 schools. They may know some in Division 1, they may know some in Division 3, but overall, the brand name is not as well known in Division 2. Hopefully that will change one day. I think it should be equal across the whole board, but that is how it is for right now. The last section is Division 3. So Division 3, there are no scholarships available for student athletes. Most of the student athletes are receiving financial aid through merit, through financial needs, or from outside scholarships. There is no athletic scholarships for Division 3. Competitive. Division 3 is actually very competitive. You'll see a lot of the strongest Division 3 programs for their respective sports competing with Division 1 schools and even defeating them. And that's something that's a common misnomer we hear, is that Division 3 is the weakest because it's Division 3. Well, yes, there are some Division 3 schools that don't have the same caliber as other Division 3 schools, sure, but every division and everything kind of in life is like that. And so there are some Division 3 schools that are very, very strong. Next one is small colleges academically focused. So colleges and universities are academically focused. Student athlete, student should always come first. Does it always happen? Unfortunately, no. But for Division 3 and these small colleges, it's very academically focused, very academically driven, and the schools are generally small. Division 1 and Division 2 are generally larger schools. Larger schools as in a population of 50,000 students for Division 1, maybe 20,000 students for Division 2. Division 3, we're looking at 5,000, 3,000, maybe even 2,000, depending on which school it is. These schools are also very, very selective in Division 3, particularly the top tier that we look at from a lot of our students. The last one is least flexible admissions. So in Division 3, there are certain standards that admissions has to follow. Because the schools are smaller, they have less spaces and less slots to admit. And so in Division 3, you see the least flexible admissions process. It's still flexible, certainly, but Division 3 will be least flexible. Time for a poll. Okay, so we're gonna have a series of 3 polls here just to get everyone engaged and to see what you may know. This is a picture of a dog. I'm a dog person myself, so I decided to include it. So we'll start with our first poll. Poll number 1 is, which university operates under Division 1 of the NCAA? Yale, the University of California, San Diego, the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech, and then MIT. If you could each please select an option, that'd be great. then we'll slide down to poll number 2. Which university operates under Division 2 of the NCAA? We have the University of California, San Diego, MIT, Caltech, or the University of Chicago. We can each click an option there. Please do so now. And now the last one. Which university operates under Division 3 of the NCAA? Harvard, MIT, Boston College, or the University of California, Los Angeles? Please select now. Great, so we are all set with the polls. I will share the results in a moment. Great, okay, so our individual that said Yale, right, yes, Yale is Division 1, it's in the Ivy League. Definitely one of the most prestigious batch of schools in the Ivy League, so that would be Yale. Division 2, Caltech. Unfortunately, no, Caltech is not in Division 2. It's actually the University of California, San Diego. Caltech is a fantastic school in California, but actually UCSD, University of California, San Diego, is the Division 2 school here. And then which school operates under Division 3? UCLA. Unfortunately, also, that's not it. MIT is the Division 3 school here. Everyone, I think, in the world pretty much knows MIT. MIT is a Division 3 school. So students are, as we all know, definitely admitted very rigorously. There's a very rigorous admissions process for MIT, but there are no athletic scholarships available for these students. Myth number 2, all student athletes can be recruited and earn a scholarship. Sadly, no. I wish it was. I really do, because I know how much the cost of higher education is. I myself had to bear the brunt of that as well. The recruitment process is a highly selective and multifaceted one that requires significant planning. So for my students, I'm working with them starting in really this time of their sophomore year. So grade 10, year 11 in the British curriculum, working on what their recruiting process will look like. Now, if you have students who are a little older than this, that's totally okay. Don't panic. Generally, we want students getting started with their formal recruiting process really in that summer between grade 10 and grade 11, or year 11 and year 12, with most of that year 12 or junior year, so to speak, being the focus of the recruiting process. In an ideal world, the recruiting process will be over by the end of junior year. Now that's flexible depending on the student, their choices, their sport, and many other things, but ideally they're finished by junior year. From this past year, I have students going to NYU Stern, University of Chicago, Georgia Tech, as well as another student going to Brown University, all playing their respective sports. And then I have another student who's on track for Harvard for next year. So I'm very excited for all of those students, but all of their processes would not have happened if we didn't start early. They all started early, they worked very hard, and planned very well. So I'm very happy for all of them, and hopefully my next group of students will be doing the same. Great, okay. And now about us. So, CALE. Our mission is to guide and empower students, helping them maximize their potential to go on to higher education in North America. Now, you might be wondering, how does sports play into this? So as the lead counselor for student athletes, I work with all of our student athletes on helping them navigate the recruitment process, helping them not only with their academic side of things and their applications, but also how to navigate speaking to a coach. What do I do in an interview? What do I need as a student athlete for my recruiting portfolio? And that's something that we'll touch upon in later episodes of this webinar, because we do meet bi-weekly for about 30 minutes. So one of our future episodes will be on what do I need to be recruited for? What portfolio do I need? Do I need a video? Do I need a statistic page? And the answer is yes to all of that. But we'll get into that in another episode. And for us, so Hale, we have offices in 4 cities, or in 3 countries around the world: Beirut, Lebanon, Abu Dhabi, here in the UAE, Dubai being our headquarters, and then also in Taipei, Taiwan. So that is all I have. We've slated for about another 10 minutes, but I'm happy to speak longer if people have more questions. If anyone has questions, please let me know. You're welcome to put them into the chat box or into the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer them. Not sure if we have questions. Maybe it's just my technical savviness here. Let's see if I can see the chat box. Yes, here we go. We have a question. Fantastic. Why won't it come up? Difficulty seeing the questions. I'm not sure if it's just not popping up on my screen. Okay, my colleague is here joining us to help me with the background. Yes, thank you very much for your question. So the question is, does the process differ for international students than for US students? Yes, it does differ. So for international students, they are viewed as in really by country by country. So in the admissions process, students are looked at by the country the passport they hold, not the country that they reside in. So that is a little bit different. So for international students, their admissions process is slightly different. For the recruiting process, that is a bit different because since the schools are in the United States, the coaches generally are more aware of the United States system, whether it be for soccer or baseball, basketball, tennis, swimming. Generally, that there is a bit of a difference. So students will have to explain their differences. Overall, I think we're seeing more of a trend where it's equalizing out for students. So students from other countries can be recruited as equal as those in the United States. Generally, students are or from international schools or from international or from other countries do obtain scholarships if they choose to have them. And the question from Anne, thank you for your question, Anne, is what are some difficulties that international students could face that other students don't? So like I said earlier, having to explain their curriculum or their sports system in their country, because it can be very different. For example, swimmers here in the UAE have to translate or change their times from short course yards to short course meters. That's just one example. So that could be another thing they have to do. In the recruiting process, since coaches are generally in the United States and not all of them can afford to travel abroad, students who are, let's say, living here in the UAE, can't get that direct exposure to the coaches, seeing them compete, seeing them play. That doesn't always happen, unfortunately. So that makes really the work we do here at Hale, building the portfolio, the videos, and all of the structure, extra important. Some students who can afford this and have the time to do this will go to the United States to participate in an exposure camp or meet the coaches on a college visit. I always recommend college visits as a counselor, but that's not mandatory for international students to go and participate in these camps. It's helpful, yes, but it's expensive. And I know this summer will be very different from past summers. So definitely it won't be mandatory this summer because most of these camps won't be held, but that is one challenge they face, just exposure. We have another question. Thank you for your question. It is it possible to be recruited during a gap year that a student takes after finishing high school? Well, generally, no. It is possible, but it's very unlikely because the student will have to have applied already, been admitted, or is in the process of applying, still in school. If they're out of school and taking a gap year, there has to be some significant project they're working on or something that can really help them stand out. Coaches are generally looking for those juniors and sophomores or even seniors in high school who are still in school and then transitioning right into the college life. With students on a gap year, it's just a little more challenging. I think it would be possible, but just be a bit challenging, and that will be definitely sport dependent because, for example, swimmers have to be keeping up their intensity, competing in meets, training, on land and off land, so to speak, and that's not necessarily possible in a gap year. I mean, it could be because they have more time, I suppose, but it's usually unlikely. And then our next question is, what level sportsman should one be to apply for scholarships with different divisions? How many tournaments should we be playing for tennis? Great question. Thank you for asking that. As a tennis person, I'm glad to hear a tennis-specific question, but I'll speak generally for everyone. So that really does depend on the sport, on the student, and on what that team is looking for. So if we're going to speak generally for Division One, a student has to be in the top tier of their academy, of their school, really achieving very strong times that match that of the school. So we can look at the recruiting pages and see, would this individual meet the team, what they need. If they're pretty far off in terms of either statistics, swimming times, whatever that may be, then it might not be a match. It's tricky to quantify what level someone needs to be. I would say if a student is competing at a national level or international level, that's a pretty great start to being recruited. International especially. If a student is traveling, whether it be for international meets or they're competing at their national championships. I have a student who's competing at the French national championships, or was earlier this year. That is usually an indicator that they will have a chance at applying for scholarships in Division 1 or Division 2. Everyone has a chance in Division 3. Division 3 is a open door policy, so to speak. For most schools, some schools do have limited rosters, but Division 3 generally accepts everyone in the sense that everyone can at least try to be on the team. There's a walk-on process for Division 3 that is not in the same as Division 1 or Division 2. Thank you all for your questions. It's been very helpful. And I think we have one more coming through. Yes, so the question is, what if there is no formal sports organization organizing the sport that the student participates in the country they live in? For example, there is no gymnastics organization in the UAE, unlike in the USA. Well, this is where we have to get creative. We have to really highlight the student athlete skills and where they're able to compete. If they are unable to compete and they are solely training, then a coach testimonial and a video of their skills, their techniques on the beam or the floor or the vault, for example, will be the utmost important. We'll have to make sure that we reach out to coaches and highlight that we're unable to compete in the UAE, but here's our video of our skills, and we're looking forward to continue to be in touch with them. It's a tricky situation to be in, an unfortunate case as well in the UAE that we don't have every sport as a federation here yet. Hopefully we do in the future. But that will be really kind of that student's recruiting process will really hinge upon their portfolio and the videos that we would work on together. If they're able to compete in their native country, if they're Emirati, then it's a little bit different. But if they're able to compete in a native country, that would be great. Some student athletes here who are from countries not too far away travel back to their country and compete once or twice a year. Maybe that's not necessary for the students. I unfortunately don't know their background, but that's one option that some students are able to do as an example. Great. Okay. So it looks like we have no other questions for now. I'll end it here. But I want to say thank you all so very much for joining us joining me today. If there are any other questions, you're welcome to email me. It's kevin@haleeducation.com. Or you can Google us at Hale Education and then contact us through our phone number or email address as well. You'll be getting a follow-up email from us after this webinar, just so we can get some feedback or so you can learn more about us. And I do look forward to hearing from you all. Again, we'll be having this webinar bi-weekly, so 2 weeks from today, same time, on Zoom. We'll be chatting about the next stage of the recruiting process. My plan is to have one of our current seniors on a call with us so she can speak about her experience. Hopefully she can do that. Just so we got her experience heading into the university process and what her experience was like. Because again, everyone's different. And it's so important to speak to many different people and get many different opinions about their process, in addition to our work together. Because again, you learn something from everyone you speak to. So again, thank you all. Belated Ramadan Kareem and Ramadan Mubarak to all who are celebrating. And I wish you a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you again and take care.